Goblin launch detected.
Hey gang! Using the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, will get you 10% off any order over $10 at Flipside Gaming. It'll also get you 10% off any orders of singles at Multizone. And it'll get you 10% off most products at Original Magic Art, with the exceptions of some paintings. If these fine sites don't have what you're looking for, you can also consider using my affiliate link when ordering from TCG Player. And if you'd like to join the generic Goblin Gang to support this channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description below. Hey gang, looking to get your hands on a free box of Theros Beyond Death? Well, look no further. Flipside Gaming will be giving one away between December 12th and January 27th. You can enter by using my promo code MTGMudsta on an order of $10 or more, or by sending a self-addressed, stamped envelope or postcard to them. It's one entry per person, and for more information, follow the link below. Today's game is something that very few people have asked for, but it's something I want to do, and since I'm the absolute ruler of this channel, I get to do whatever I want. That's right, today's game is exclusively Sultai decks. Ben has brought his Kadena deck, Keeping a Villainous Wealth, Secret Plans, Soul Ring, Soetic Cavern, 2 Forests, and Darkwater Catacombs. Martin is playing his Rayami deck, Keeping a Vampire Nighthawk, Ashnod's Altar, Rhystic Study, the Gitrog Monster, Breeding Pool, Swamp, and Mulldrifter. I have borrowed a Yarok deck, Keeping a Spark Double, Path of Discovery, Breeding Pool, Deadeye Navigator, Forest, Lumbering Falls, and Colony Garden. Max has borrowed Ben's Volrath deck, Keeping a Tranquil Thicket, an Island, an Opulent Palace, Neoform, Demir's Signet, Deadly Tempest, and also Villainous Wealth. Ben wins the die roll and starts us off. Ben plays a Forest and casts Soul Ring. Martin plays a Breeding Pool, taking 2 life to have it come in untapped, and he pays 1 green for a Gilded Goose. He gets a food token and passes. I play a tapped Colony Garden, getting a planet token and passing. Max plays a tapped Halimar Depths, rearranging his top 3. Ben plays a Darkwater Catacombs and is able to cast Kadena. He then plays a Morph creature for free and draws a card from Kadena. Martin plays an Island and drops a turn 2 Rhystic Study, super duper. I play tapped Lumbering Falls. Max plays a Forest and casts a Demir's Signet. As someone previously mentioned in another video, it wouldn't be an MTGMudsta game without someone not paying that 1, and Max is that someone today. Ben draws and plays a tapped Opulent Palace. He casts Secret Plans and joins Max in the not paying 1 party. He then uses the remaining floating mana to unmorph his Soetic Cavern, and draws from the Secret Plans. Moving to combat, Martin and Kadena meet head to head, and Martin takes 3 commander damage. Martin plays a Phyrexian Tower, sacrificing the Gilded Goose for 2 black. This is now enough, along with the rest of his lands, to cast his commander. With nothing else, Martin passes. I play a tapped Breeding Pool and pass. Max also plays a tapped Opulent Palace for his land drop return, and he uses Crossing Grip to take out the study. Martin still gets to draw a card before saying goodbye to his study. Ben casts his first Morph creature for turn and draws from Kadena. He plays a tapped Myriad Landscape and then casts Lightning Greaves. He puts the Greaves to the Morph creature and he hits me for 2. In his post-combat main phase, Ben moves the Greaves over to Commander and he passes to Martin. Martin plays a Swamp and evokes a Mulldrifter. It comes in and draws him 2 cards and then gets sacrificed. Martin exiles a Mulldrifter with a blood counter on it, meaning that Rayami will now always have flying. Martin then plays out Elves of Deep Shadow and he hits Max for 5 with Rayami. Martin is then forced to discard down to 7 and he passes. I play a Forest and cast Solemn Simulacrum to find a basic Swamp tapped. Max plays a tapped Tranquil Thicket. Ben plays his free Morph for turn, drawing from Kadena. He then plays a Forest and casts Wild Call, putting 3 into the X. He manifests his top card and puts 3+1/+1 counters onto it. This also lets him draw as a face-down creature has come into play, making Kadena happy. Moving to combat, Ben then hits Martin again for 3 with his commander. Martin plays an Underground River, and loses 1 life from tapping his Elves of Deep Shadow to help pay for a Vampire Nighthawk. Martin then sacrifices the Nighthawk to his Phyrexian Tower for 2 black, and exiles it as it dies. He uses that mana, plus a bit more for Kadena's Climb. Moving to combat, Martin puts the +1/+1 counter from the Climb trigger onto Rayami, and he heads at max. The Vampire connects, dealing 6 more commander damage, and now has the benefit of Death Touch and Lifelink from the exiled Nighthawk, which means Martin gains 6 life as well. I play a Drowned Catacomb for turn and cast a Birthing Pod. I then pay the 2 to pot away Solemn, drawing first and then finding a 5-drop. I grab a Phyrexian Delver, who brings back the Solemn at the cost of 4 life. I fully admit at this point that we thought that Rayami's ability was a May, with Martin having only made the deck recently, so he missed that the Solemn should have been exiled. Unknowingly cheating at this point, I go and find another basic. Max plays an island and casts Deadly Tempest. Responding to this, Ben flips his Dulcet Siren, and then a Den Protector, paying their morph costs, and returns Wild Call to his hand and draws 2 from the Secret Plans. Deadly Tempest then resolves, and Martin catches the mistake with the exile, and we exile all of our creatures. We then lose damage from the Tempest, with Ben losing 4, Martin losing 2, and I losing 3. Max then passes. Ben plays a Swamp, and he casts Commander Sphere in his main phase. He pays most of his mana for Kadena, and plays a morph creature for free, drawing a card. He then moves the Greaves onto his commander, and smacks Martin again for 3 before passing. Martin plays a Forest, and brings back out Rayami, wishing he'd exiled a creature with haste. He moves to combat, putting a +1/+1 counter from the Climb onto his commander, and he passes turn. I play a Waterlogged Grove for turn, and I lose 1 by tapping the Grove to help cast a Woodland Bellower. This comes in, and I get to go and find a green 3-drop. I put to field a Risen Reef, and it triggers after I finish shuffling, which lets me put the tapped Opulent Palace from the top of my library into play. I then pass to Max. Max casts a Sakur Tribe Elder, and plays an Evolving Wild before passing to Ben. Ben plays a tapped Golgari Rot Farm as his land for turn, returning the Zoetic Cavern to his hand. He then plays this free morph creature from his hand, which might very well be the Cavern. It is. And draws. Ben then uses Wild Call again, this time putting 4 into the X. He manifests the card face down and draws from Kadena. Ben then passes, discarding down to 7. Martin plays a Windswept Heath and heads to combat. He puts the counter onto Rayami, and hits Max again, dealing 7 more commander damage and gaining 7 life this time. In his second main phase, Martin then casts the Gitrog monster, and sacrifices the Heath, losing 1 life, and drawing a card before going to find a land for the field. He puts to field a tapped Overgrown Tomb, while Max also goes to find some lands by sacrificing the Elder and the Wilds. Martin can play another land from his hand, and he plays a tapped Watery Grave before passing turn. I play an island and cast Yarok in my main phase, losing 1 from the Grove. This triggers the Risen Reef twice as it comes in, with the first card going to my hand and the second being a Polluted Delta, which finds its way to the field. I then sacrifice the Delta, losing 1, and go to find a land. I then pot away the Bellower, who gets exiled on death, and go to find a 7-drop. I grab an Agent of Treachery, which gives me 2 steel triggers as it enters. I target Rayami, and Ben's morph creature with 4 counters. Responding to the targets, Ben morphs his creature, revealing an Entuco Vigilante, who blows up my Birthing Pod. Martin also responds and sacrifices Rayami to the Phyrexian Tower to deny my steal. With the 1 steal then resolving, I cast a Spark Double, having it come in as a copy of the Agent of Treachery, getting 2 more steel triggers, and then it comes in with a +1/+1 counter. This time I steal the Gitrog monster and Ben's Greaves. These steals resolve without any issues, and I put the stolen Greaves, or should I say my Greaves, onto Yarok. I can also play an extra land for turn, dropping a tapped Fetid Pools. I then move to my end step, drawing 3 cards twice thanks to my 2 agents, and have to discard down to 7. Max plays a Carnifex Demon in his main phase, putting the counters onto it, and passes. Ben plays a Command Tower before dropping his free Morph creature and drawing from Kadena. He unmorphs a Morph, drawing from Secret Plans, and then casts Necromantic Selection. With his spell in the stack, He then unmorphs Gift of Doom by sacrificing his other morph and attaches it to Kadena. Max decides to not let Ben have his cake and eat it too by using Return to Nature to blow up the enchantment. This forces Ben to have to pick between a creature or his commander, and he chooses to have the Agent of Treachery come back. This lets him steal back his Greaves as it enters, and Ben then puts the Greaves onto the Agent and hits Martin for 2 before passing turn. Martin spends his turn recasting Rayami and passing turn. I play the impossibly strong Royal Elemental in my main phase and play a Forest. I finally manage to steal Rayami, and Max reminds me to lose 1 life from the Grove. I then play the beautifully sequenced Guardian Project after playing my creature and pass turn. Max's turn has him casting Villainous Wealth, where X is 5, and he targets me. He gets a land, Soul Ring, Elvish Visionary, Scapeshift, and Massacre Worm, only able to cast the middle 3. Max does resolve all these spells. In the meantime, Ben sacrifices his landscape to find 2 matching basics. Max sacrifices most of his lands to Scapeshift to go and find better ones. He layers his triggers to resolve the Mossware Bridge first, hiding away a card, and then bounces the bridge back to hand with the Golgari Rot Farm. He then replays the bridge, having been unhappy with his original hideaway card, and hides away another one before passing to Ben. Ben plays an island and recasts his commander. He casts his free morph for turn and draws a card. We then see a Dreamstone Hedron come into play, and then a Golgari Signet. Ben then moves the Greaves onto Kadena and passes turn. Martin plays out Dictate of Erebos and follows up with a Merciless Executioner. This clears away most of the board once people are done sacrificing, and Martin passes. I play a tapped Watery Grave and recast Yarok. I then play Wood Elves, drawing 2 cards from the project trigger being doubled, and going to find 2 forest cards from the Wood Elves enter the battlefield being doubled. I grab an Overgrown Tomb, which I have come in tapped, and a forest. I then pass, discarding down to 7. Max pays 5 and brings out Volrath, meaning that every one of the sassy Sultai sovereigns has been some, stuff? I can't think of anything alliterative to finish the sentence. He moves to combat, putting a -1/-1 counter on Yarok, and then moves to a second main phase, having Volrath become a copy of Yarok. Max then casts Altered Ego, having it come in as a Wood Elves, and goes to find 2 forest cards. He finds a Breeding Pool, taking 2, and a forest. Before shuffling, Max then casts Neoform, sacrificing the Altered Ego Wood Elves to go and find a 4-drop. He puts to field a Solemn Simulacrum, and goes to find 2 more basics. Ben plays his free morph creature, drawing from Kadena. He then taps out completely and puts Max to shame by casting a much larger Villainous Wealth. He targets me, and hits a lot of value according to Ben, which I think is underselling it. He lays out the cards to show which will be cast or resolved first, whichever is pertinent, and he steals Yarok with Treachery. He gets to untap 10 lands because by the time Treachery resolves, he'll have control of Yarok. Ben then gets a boatload of card draw from the Soul of the Harvest, and gets to tutor for 2 cards thanks to the Runescar Demon. He also gets to untap a bunch more lands thanks to the Peregrine Drake. He destroys 2 creatures with a Gear Hulk and gains some life, with the Solemn and the Volrath being his targets. On the plus side, Max gets to draw a card as the Solemn dies. Ben then also resolves an Endrazor Forerunner from his hand, which acts like a mini Craterhoof, giving all of his creatures +2/+2, Vigilance, and Trample twice. Once he's done all that, Ben then plays out a Thieving Amalgam, just in case someone wipes the board, which will most likely end up with me losing if someone does. And he heads to combat. He swings Kadena at Martin, and swings the remaining creatures that he has that didn't just come in, at Max. This is enough to take Max out, and Ben then passes. Martin manifests his top card face down onto Ben's side of the board thanks to the Thieving Amalgam, which lets Ben draw a card. Martin then plays a Llanowar Wastes, and then a Wormcoil Engine, and an Ashnod's Altar, and he passes to me. I manifest my top card as well, and Ben draws 2 from the Soul Trigger as it enters. I pay 5 in my main phase for a Puppeteer Clique, which I plan to use to bring back Ben's Ixodron. Ben, not wanting to lose his win, counters the Clique with a Rewind. I then play Grave Titan and pass turn. Ben draws for turn and goes to combat. He swings his creatures as evenly as he can at Martin and I, and before moving to damage, casts Biomass Mutation, putting 17 into the X. This turns his base power and toughness for all of his creatures into 17/17s, and even with Martin losing his Wormcoil to the Ashland's Altar, which would trigger the Dictate, and the tokens as well, still means that Ben has enough creatures to kill both of us and win the game. Game review time. So I'm kind of uncomfortable by how many times I got targeted by Villainous Wealth. Once can be pretty upsetting, but having it done to me twice in one game, not to mention that it totaled for almost a fifth of my library, was pretty upsetting. Everyone else got to play with my toys except for me. Max unfortunately seemed to struggle a little bit with finding some relevant cards, and by the time he was able to cast Volrath and start cloning things, he was quite far behind. A lot of the lands that Ben had put into the deck unfortunately came into play tapped, and the few cards that Max was able to draw weren't really helping him get forward. I think Ben showcased just why Kadena is probably the best morph commander in the game currently. The sheer amount of draw that he was getting per morph creature was fantastic, and he had so many great manipulative spells. I was also super happy that Martin had built Rayami, because I don't think she's gotten the spotlight that she deserves. She's very much a build around me commander. I think Rayami would be even better if it weren't for the fact that all the decks in this game were Sultai, mixing in some red and some white to get protection, double strike, and haste would turn the commander into a real threat later on. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.